Good morning, traders. Today is Tuesday, August 31st. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. Okay, well, let's just expand out the overnight real quick, and we'll talk about that. Market's going to open in just a couple minutes, but we are opening inside the previous day's range, so that increases the odds that we're just going to get chop here. So we can take a second to look at this. So what you can see happened is they opened right here, immediately pushed higher, came back down, found support, and then they had a big push to make a new all-time high. Of course, that high is weak because every all-time high made in the overnight is always repaired eventually by the regular trading hours. Okay, and then once they did, they had a massive sell-off. Okay, and that's important to recognize that we've already had the counter auction to this big bullish push higher. And actually, we're about to open right here almost at exactly the price that they closed at yesterday. So I see this just as rotation. I don't see it as net long or net short. I just see this as regular, good old rotation. They tried to push higher, got themselves a little bit too long, pulled back, found support right around that base of the single prints where we'd expect them to. And now they're back to the starting point. Okay? So all in all, that's bullish. But, you know, it does... It's not extremely bullish. It's just a little bit bullish would be the way I would describe it. Yesterday was another P-shaped formation, meaning the market pushed higher and then just rotated at higher prices. That is clearly a trend that we have had recently. And every time that it has done that and then the market has just rotated, we have continued to push higher the next day. So I'm keeping that in mind, but I'm also keeping in mind that we left behind a little bit of a gap yesterday and some weakness from the day before that needs repair. So I'll be going into this morning with kind of a neutral perspective, waiting to see what the market has for me. Again, we're going to open inside the previous day's range and inside the previous day's value area. So we're likely to get some chop, the market grinding up and down. So I will be waiting to see what happens when we get to the base of these single prints from yesterday. If we find support there, that to me would be a good long trade for continuation higher. Okay, but if we trade through that level, we don't find support, it would be a short to target the gap fill that was left behind yesterday. Okay, so that gap fill is down at 45.10. And then, of course, we'd be watching for support there. As far as to the upside, getting through this node of volume from yesterday, where the POC is around 45.31.25, would be bullish, and I would be looking for the market just let that data load for a second. Also worth mentioning, I got a bit of a sore throat this morning, so I'm going to keep the talking to a minimum once we get going here. Okay, so this node of volume right around the POC at 45, 30, 50-ish, around this area. Market trades up into here, pushes through, comes back down and finds support. That would be a good long trade for continuation higher. But I wouldn't try to short it if there's resistance there. Okay, so if it trades up into here and it's finding resistance, I wouldn't try to short it because I think we can just get chop inside this range. So I'd rather wait till we either get above here or below here before I enter a trade. Okay? Okay, so at the moment we're backfilling those single prints from yesterday, and the next support will be right at the base. Thank you for the reminder, Donkey. Donkey was talking yesterday about that trend line on the daily. So the idea with any support resistance in the market is that often once you push through, so obviously this trend line was resistance over and over again, caused us to sell back down and have these massive pullbacks. So the idea is once you push through it, it often acts as support. If it doesn't, that's a look above and fail, increasing the odds that we're going to rotate down to the opposite end of whatever that range is. In this case, it's sort of a channel. So we'll be looking for support pretty much right where we are now, 45.22. It can push down a little bit and then wick its way back up. That is okay. But it's like when the day closes at the end of the day today, is it above this line? If so, that's very bullish for continuation to the upside as a breakout. Chop, chop, chop. So once again, just so I don't have to keep repeating it over and over again, I'm just going to write support here. That doesn't mean it's definitely going to be support, but just that this could potentially be support at the base of the single prints. So we'll just watch and see what happens there. Okay, so as I mentioned, if we do trade below here, that is a short with the potential to try to fill that gap below. But let it spend a little bit of time down here. Certainly if it pushes below and then comes back up and finds resistance, that's a good entry for a short. Please smash that like button, hit that subscribe, that notification bell, join the party, join the team. Stay up to date with the latest stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that all-time high. If after we push down through here, we find resistance, right in this node of volume where we're currently finding resistance, um, and you start to get continuation lower, you got the gap that needs to be backfilled from yesterday, and you got the potential look above and fail of that channel on the daily. Oops. Right? And this look above and fail could be potent. It could lead to a larger sell-off, maybe down to the 20. So it doesn't count until the end of the day if the bar closes below there. But worth the risk of getting into a short just in case. All right, ticks are trending higher above the 0 line. Okay, the internals actually look bullish. Okay, so we're getting that resistance right at the base of those single prints. You could enter a short here with a pretty tight stop, and you wouldn't have to risk that many points. But you are fighting the internals. The overnight low means nothing to me today. Just because of the sporadic way that it traded. They got themselves overly long. They got themselves overly short. So I don't necessarily see it as support. Really, to me, what's more pivotal is the base of these single prints. Well, Harry, if what was support? If the base of single prints act as support, I would go long and monitor for continuation, but probably targeting that all-time high up here. Got a poor high from yesterday, also needs repair. That's another target to the upside. But it's too early to tell. They're still just doing some two-sided trade here. Trying to figure out if they got it. They got the buyers. Yeah, Ronald, what you're doing is you're trading the chop. You don't ever want to do that. You don't ever want to go long, short, and reverse positions like that because you get chewed up in the middle and emotionally you're chewed up, right? So now you've had 2 losing trades in a row in the first 15 minutes of the day. So you want to just choose your position, put your stop, and either be right or wrong, and then sit back, relax, and wait for the next trade to present itself. Trying to reverse positions, I don't know anybody that does that unless they're a really, really skilled trader. Okay, so we push back up towards the base of that spike, and it's acting as, single prints. It's acting as resistance. So that is bearish to me. Let's jump over and see what the internals are doing. Okay. So I'm going to switch myself to feeling bearish here, but you guys need to recognize that that's just a very short-term thing. If we get down to the gap and we find support here, I'm happy to see the market turn around and continue higher. Okay, obviously really bad taper on the low here. Almost all these contracts have the same number traded. So that increases the odds of needing to push down here once more. Get some more trade there. Okay, if you did enter that short at the base of those single prints, as I pointed out earlier, you can move your stop to a tick or two below break even here and monitor for continuation to the downside. All right. Well, yep. The buy the fucking dip crowd stepped in here. We got good taper on the low, but that same resistance right there at the base of those single prints could act as resistance once more for another push lower. Ticks aren't quite telling us a good story yet. Just bouncing up and down through the zero line. Whoever just wrote that comment, I have no idea what that says. All right, guys. Well, it's getting a bit tricky to see if they're going to get follow through here. We have good taper on the low. I don't love the 43 contracts, but with these dip buyers being what they are, it wouldn't surprise me to leave that behind. However, it's worth noting the value is lower, and the POC is right down here, which is the fairest price to do business. So the downtrend is still within reach here. I would change my tune on that if we get above that halfback. Miles, is it a when what should happen doesn't? Oh yeah, if that gap doesn't fill, right, that would be extremely bullish. But they just haven't decided yet. There's still a little battle happening here. Well, why do you say that, Charles? Because every time they push back up into where the base of those single prints was, they get smacked back down. Since the first time they push through, every time they're getting smacked down. So it's not perfectly exact to the tick, but you can just see where the node of volume is. Sellers keep piling on there. And my guess is, what are they targeting? What are they looking at? That gap. So right now the B period is an inside bar on the A period, and that's not very common. So it's a sign of rotation. It's a sign of uncertainty in the market. If when the B period closes, if it's still an inside bar, you can look at which direction does it break out from that as a potential, directional bias for the day, right? So they're uncertain right now. They can't figure out what they want to do. But if it breaks, say the C period prints and then it breaks to the upside of the B period, it's likely that the bulls won. And they've got some targets to the upside. They got the poor high left behind from yesterday and the weak all-time high left behind from last night. And then same thing to the downside. If it were to C period were to print here and then trade down and break that B period low, you could look for the gap fill. It's worth keeping in mind, though, that value is lower. The market is acting in a rotational way, and we're above value, above the POC. So if we start to see resistance here, we know it's just still uncertainty. Yeah, like I said, it's difficult to be super bullish here. As we talked about the when what should happen, the fact that it didn't have to fill that gap is bullish, but the internals aren't quite bullish yet. They're still looking the way they would look if it was rotational. So let's see if we can hold this uptrend. Let's see if we can stay above the zero line. Let's see if we can break that A period high. Then we start to feel bullish. Potentially donkey. Could be the moment of truth on that trend line. Could also just be rotation. Don't forget they can do that to you. They can just grind around for a while and not quite make a decision. But yeah, they're pushing right up against it now. And the chop continues. It looks like we are going to get that inside bar. So once again, for those of you that are newer to the profile, essentially, oftentimes you get what's called an initial balance, where the market kind of picks a direction early in the day, say it trades up, and then you get, the B period above the A period, and then that whole range becomes your initial balance. Okay. But when you get an inside bar like this, you kind of ignore the initial balance and you focus just on the high and the low of the inside bar. So if the C period prints in here and it breaks to the upside, the market is likely to continue that way. If it breaks to the downside, the market is likely to continue that way. But you don't really, at least the way I trade, you don't want to take trades in here because the market can just keep chopping for hours, right? And then eventually it works its way up and then boom, breaks like that, or works its way down and then boom, breaks like that. So you either want to wait until the C period prints and you're certain that it's going to be rotational and you start taking rotational trades, or you wait for the breakout of the B period high or low. All right, guys, what kind of a boring morning here? Just some chop up and down. Market hasn't picked a direction yet. So it is rotational at the moment. And you don't necessarily want to short it above value or go long below value because of the potential, like I said, of it breaking that B period high or low. You're likely to get continuation in that direction. But as long as it stays sort of inside this value area, it's likely to just keep grinding around. All right. Thank you all so very much for joining me. I will be back here tomorrow morning. There's no private stream today because I'm, as soon as I hang this up, I'm heading to my new apartment. So got to get settled in there today. But tomorrow the streams will be back to normal. And I look forward to seeing you all then. Yeah, Rocket waiting on news. That makes perfect sense. Just keep in mind value is lower. And yeah, you got to wait until you break that B period high or low. Good luck, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.